Alright, so we're getting ready for primer here, and I'm going to mask off this area so that I just prime the areas that are necessary and not get primer overspray into this area, which is going to grow my repair. Ah, fuck. God damn it. Instead of getting a hard so instead of getting a hard line here, by masking like this, I'll do what's called a back tape job here. Once I lay my primer down here, I won't have this hard line here, which is going to require a lot of sanding. Alright, so we've got the area sanded out and, filled, sanded out. We got it masked off, and so let's go mix up our primer. Alright, the bumper's got quite a bit of bare plastic, so I'm actually going to lay down 3 coats of primer, and in that case I'm going to need about 3 ounces to cover that bumper corner. So we'll get our plastic cup on our scale and scale on. That'll set to about 0, and the primer, as you can see, the mix ratio is 2 parts primer, 2 parts primer reducer, and 1 part primer activator. So I'll look at the fill line on the plastic cup and put in 1 ounce of primer. And 1 ounce of primer reducer. And because it's 2 parts primer, 2 parts reducer, 1 part activator, I'll add 1/2 ounce of activator here. And I guess that'll give us a final quantity of 2.5 ounces, which I think should be enough. Alright, just a few notes about your spray gun. This knob right here is going to set your air material mixture, your air paint mixture. I'd leave it at the factory settings. This is going to expand the size of your fan and decrease the size of your fan. I generally run this at about 80% open. Down at the base of your spray gun will be what's called a cheater valve, which allows you to adjust air pressure. I strongly suggest that you just leave this wide open at all times. On the face of your spray gun is what's called your air horn, and if you loosen up the cap, you can go with what's called a vertical air horn, or to get into tight spots, which you're gonna very rarely have to do. 99% of the time you're going to want to leave your air horn with a vertical fan. And a note about pressure on your regulator. As a general rule, primer, base coat, clear coat, no matter what I'm spraying, I set it so that while the trigger is open, it's at 28 pounds. So this one seems to be set to about 60, so I'll use the dial on the regulator and we'll come down to 28. That's the money spot right there. Alright, so let's drop a paint strainer into our gun here and fill up with our primer. Cap our gun. And we'll set this aside for just a second. And we'll knock off the dust off of our panel before we lay down our primer. Alright, respirator on, and I'll lay down 3 wet coats, probably wait about 20 seconds between coats. I'm making sure that I cover all the bare plastic areas. Alright, as I was laying down my primer, I could see that I simply didn't fill some of these scratches far enough. I think maybe you can see a few right here. There's quite a few of them that are showing through now that I've laid the primer down. And I'm going to have to refill these cuts that have suddenly reappeared. Alright, so let's dump this primer into our refuse can. Wash it out with a little bit of thinner. Alright, the primer's had about 10 minutes to cure up, and I'm just seeing some areas on here. I don't know if this camera's going to be able to capture them, but just little cuts and scratches that I haven't managed to get out here. And spray down my guide coat here. Take my 220 grit and wrap it around a foam pad and sand in an X pattern. All right, now that we've got our guide coat down and we've sanded over it, it's revealed all those little scratches that are going to need to be filled again. This time I'm actually going to cut this Bondo spreading pad in half so it's a bit more accurate. Alright, it's been about 10 minutes and this Bondo or this filler is pretty firm. So I'm going to put a 220 stick on my DA and sand the head down of this filler. And we'll follow up with some 220 on a block. Feeling a little bit of a nub right here. Just gonna take a little sandpaper by hand and knock down that head. Feel out here. It feels pretty good. Feels real smooth. So if you take a closer look here, I think last time I sanded a bit too aggressively and pulled the filler out of these scratches, and then they revealed themselves. They revealed themselves after the primer again. But this time I was pretty sure to back off right at about the point where the filler was kind of feathered out around the damage. And I think we'll have a better result this time after putting 3 coats of primer on here. Alright, so as you note, I've been running quite a bit of thinner through this gun until when I pull the trigger and I don't have the air hose attached, what comes out is just pure clean thinner. Make sure to clean up your cap as well.